It's out okay because we have math in the morning and Mr. Daniels does this thing he calls the bus driver. He says, "You're the bus driver." And then he tells us how many people get on and off, and we have to add and subtract the numbers in our head. No paper, no pencils, just math. When I was younger, I loved math, everything about math. But in school, math now has letters. Like, what does X equal? There are also long stories with characters, and although the story is supposed to end with some number, all the words block my path to getting there. But the day turns into a wooden nickel day at snack time when Mr. Daniels calls me up to his desk. He holds the assignment that I did for Mrs. Hall, where we had to describe ourselves, the one with Y written over and over on it. So my stomach flops over. So I'm wondering what this means exactly. Can you tell me? He asks. I shrug. I'm wondering if you can write just one paragraph for me. Something about you. I'd like to learn something about you. I stay quiet. With teachers, if you stay quiet long enough, they start doing the talking for you, filling in the answers, and then you just have to nod. So I wait. But he waits too. Finally, he says, "Come on now, can you write that paragraph for me?" I feel heavy. "No," I say. He doesn't want to know about the real me. It'll be like people in scary movies who think they want to know what's in the basement, but when they find out, they're always sorry. "Allie, did you say no?" he asks without being mad. I turn myself to stone. He takes a deep breath and leans forward. "So, is it writing you don't like?" I think about saying no, except it could cause me trouble later, like the chess games in Grandpa's Alice in Wonderland book. You have to be super sure before you make a move final. But I figure Mr. Daniels probably already knows this about me, so I nod. "What do you like then?" "Buffalo wings," I say. He laughs a little. "What do you like about school?" "Leaving." He waits for me to say more. "I like math and art. I like to draw." "Oh, well, that's cool. Do you draw a lot?" "Yeah." "So do you find the writing difficult, or do you just not like it?" "It's easy," I lie. "It's just boring." "Well, maybe we can do some things to make it less boring for you, to excite you about writing. It's a great way to explore, be creative, ask questions." I point at my paper. "I asked a lot of questions there." "Yes," he laughs. "I guess you did." He takes a deep breath. "Here's the thing, Allie. I'm going to be honest with you. I've talked with both Mrs. Hall and Mrs. Silver. I know that you spent a lot of time in the office in the past. You're good at getting sent to the office, but you can be too good at the wrong things." Uh-oh. "I just want you to know that I'm going to try really hard not to send you to the office. If we have something to deal with, you and I will deal with it together." He winks. "What happens in room 206 stays in room 206. "What?" "So we won't involve Mrs. Silver anymore, okay? I think she has enough to do around here." Oh no, did he just take away my get out of jail free card? "Also," he says, moving his head to look me in the eye, "I'm on your side, okay? I want to help you." So he wants to help me, huh? He has no idea what he's in for. Chapter 9. Bag Full of Nothing. Today we're each supposed to bring in something that represents us and tell the class about it. I thought of a few things I could bring, like a can full of dirt or a bag full of nothing. Mr. Daniels asked for volunteers to go first. Shock of the century when Shay raises her hand. She gets up there with a picture of her horse, Diamond. She goes on about how she loves him and goes riding several times a week, but how it's a lot of work to take care of him. She shows us her riding helmet and fancy riding jacket, too. She doesn't have. Jessica brings a picture of Shay and talks about what good friends they are, which I think is funny since we're supposed to talk about ourselves. Oliver bounces to the front of the room. His feet are never on the floor at the same time. He takes out a light bulb. "I am the giver of light." "Really?" Mr. Daniels asks. "Well, my dad is. He sells lamps, and when I grow up, I'm going to be a salesman, too. I'm going to sell hangers." "Hangers?" Mr. Daniels asks. "Yeah, because I was thinking that it should be something that everyone has, because you'd want to sell stuff that most people need. Because if you sold stuff that nobody wanted, then you wouldn't sell anything, right? And everybody needs hangers." Mr. Daniels smiles and puts his hand on Oliver's shoulder. "Oliver, you are one clever boy. You know that?" I haven't been in the school that long, but I'm going to guess that Oliver hasn't heard that said much. He falls into his chair, which tips back, but he grabs his desk, rights himself, and cheers for his own victory. Albert gets up next. As always, he wears the shirt with Flint on it and his bruises. He reaches into a brown paper lunch bag and pulls out a jar of clear liquid. His throat. This is a mixture of 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen molecules. Will it explode? Yells Oliver. Albert does not answer. Instead, he unscrews the metal lid and drinks whatever it is. I'm silently freaked out, but Oliver goes nuts. He drank it. Did you see that? He drank molecules. Gross. It's merely water, Albert reports. While Mr. Daniels speaks to Albert, Shay whispers to Jessica, Water? Really? That's all he's got? Shay has gotten even better at being mean. Ever since Mr. Daniels kept her in for recess for making fun of Oliver, she saves her comments for when Mr. Daniels is busy or talking to someone else. This water was taken from a giant underground lake that goes on for miles and miles, Albert announces. It's the same water that the dinosaurs walked through 100 million years ago and the cavemen drank. It's the same water that polar bears swam in just last year and medieval knights guzzled after battle. Oliver and most of the other boys stand, trying to get a better look. That's cool, Albert, Max says. Where did you get it? Jessica and Shay smile and lean forward to look at Max. Shay calls out, Yeah, Albert, where did you get it? I got it from my kitchen faucet. Huh? The same water has been here and been reused since Earth began. It is important to me because, as a scientist and historian, I know that we are but a blip on the Earth's timeline, a grain of sand on an entire beach of time. Kids are starting to groan. Here goes the professor again, Max says. Yeah, such a show off, Jessica says, turning to Max. Now knock that off, Mr. Daniel says. I think Albert's idea is fascinating. How Earth has recycled its water over and over. Extraordinary, Albert. Next, he calls on Keisha. She carries a small box and holds it like whatever is inside will break easily. When she takes out a cupcake, the boys argue about who will get to eat it. This is a cupcake that I made. It isn't from box mix, it's homemade. And why is it important to you? Mr. Daniels asks. I like to bake. I told my mom I want to start a business when I get older, and she said there's no time like the present. So this is the first one I'll show to anyone outside my family. My God, Shay whispers. She acts like she's the first to make a cupcake. It's not even decorated or anything. Shay, please keep your comments constructive, Mr. Daniel says. Yes, it is plain on the outside, Keisha says, half smiling at Shay, but it's the inside that matters. Keisha takes a knife out of her box and cuts the cupcake in half and shows us the inside. As you can see, it says yum on the inside. How did you do that? Suki asks, and I'm surprised to hear her talk. She hardly ever says anything. I've been experimenting with making letters out of different kinds of dough. I stand the letters up in the cupcake batter and carefully cover them with more batter. Do you lick the spoon when you're done? Oliver asks. I like to lick the spoon, but my mom says too much sugar isn't good for me, so she doesn't bake much because, Oliver, Mr. Daniel says, pulling on his own ear. Oliver stops right away. Then Mr. Daniels looks at the cupcake. Wow, Keisha, that is pretty impressive. I'm going to call my baking business Hidden Messages, the better way to send a note. That's fantastic, Keisha, Mr. Daniel says. The possibilities are infinite. Albert raises his hand and Mr. Daniels points to him. The possibilities are not, in fact, infinite, as she would eventually run out of appropriate letter combinations, and the number of letters to be used in each cake would be limited as well. Also, you imply the possibilities are all positive, when it is probable that the possibilities would be equal in positive and negative outcomes. Actually, you're correct, Albert, Mr. Daniel says, but I am an optimist. What can I say? So you agree that the possibilities aren't endless? Well, I agree from a mathematical standpoint, Albert, but not from a human one. I believe that the things we put numbers on are not necessarily the things that count the most. You can't measure the stuff that makes us human, like Keisha's creativity or how hard she'll work. Mr. Daniel shrugs. Just my opinion. Well, it seems that the part that can be measured is most important, Albert says, because that's what can be proven. Well, my fine young fellow, I think we'll have to agree to disagree, Mr. Daniel says, walking by Albert and patting his shoulder. Then Mr. Daniels calls on Suki. She pulls out tiny paper bags and begins to pass them out to everyone. Foods to share. One is Hone Senbi, my grandfather's favorite. Other is wasabi peas. They are maybe spicy. Food in America tastes. She turns to Mr. Daniels. What is correct word? All of a sudden, Max jumps up and runs to the sink, followed by Keisha and Jessica. Too hot, Max yells. The three push each other a bit, trying to scoop water into their mouths. Ah, yes, Suki continues. Bland is correct word. Food here is bland. She seems to think that the three kids at the sink are both funny and odd. I think how hard it would be to move to a different country and have to learn another language. I can't even handle one. Mr. Daniels laughs, holding the little bumpy, bright green pea between his fingers. They don't look that hot. Most people in the class are too chicken to eat it now, pushing it away. Suki looks a little hurt. Albert puts one in his mouth. He eats it, but looks like he's in pain. His eyes even water. He says with a gasp, I like it, Suki. Thank you. That Albert is nice. Oliver pops it in his mouth but has no reaction. Oliver, Mr. Daniels asks, you don't think it's hot? Nah, I'm the only one in my family that can finish a fireball without taking it out of my mouth. My mother says that I must have no taste buds at all, and my dad says, Mr. Daniels pulls on his earlobe again and says, thanks, Oliver. Oliver's mouth is open, ready to keep going, but he says, thanks, Mr. Daniels. Do they have some signal or something? Suki continues, these foods mean much to me because I share them with grandfather. Many things about Japan I miss, but grandfather I most miss. Also, I miss wood carving with him. He make me wooden blocks, and I carve gift for him and send. So that's why she has those blocks. I eat these foods because they remind me of Japan and my grandfather. I feel sad for her. What are the crackers made of? Asks Albert. Suki turns to him. They are made of shrimp and fish bones. It isn't just Oliver who goes wild over that one. Most everyone says yuck, and Suki looks up at Mr. Daniels, who turns to the class. Now, quiet down. Shrimp and bones, Shay asks. We prefer lobster in our family. Albert raises his hand. I would just like to point out that lobster is a very expensive meal now, but in the olden days, it was served only to peasants and slaves who revolted and demanded that they only be served lobsters twice a week. And he swallows. I think fish bones would have some excellent nutritional properties. Suki smiles for a second before she scurries back to her seat. Mr. Daniels gives Albert a solid nod. Next, it's my turn. What I ended up bringing in means something to me, but now I'm not sure the class will be nice about it. I decide to play it safe and say I forgot. I could tell Mr. Daniels is disappointed. Well then, do you have a pet you could tell us about? He says. No, my mom is allergic. This reminds me of my dad crawling around the living room on all fours, pretending to be the puppy I begged for. Oliver starts to bark like a dog. Mr. Daniel says, too much of that, Oliver, and we'll have to give you dog biscuits. Better be careful. Mr. Daniel squints at me. Are you sure there's nothing you can show us? Because I have a feeling there's something. I slide my hand down into my pocket and clutch my 1943 steel penny, the object I brought in for sharing today. He watches my hand, and I realize I've given myself away. So I stand and take out the penny. My dad is in the army, and he's deployed right now. On the day my dad left, he gave Travis and me these pennies. I look up at Mr. Daniels. That's my big brother. He nods. In 1943, pennies looked weird because they were silver in color like quarters. They were made of steel instead of copper because the government needed copper to make ammunition during World War II. Then in 1944, pennies went back to the usual red copper color. Anyway, I think it's cool. I do too, Mr. Daniel says, and I think it's even more cool that you told us about it. As I walk back to my seat, I think of how when Dad left, he said that when we look at the steel pennies, we need to remember that we are unique too, and also that things will go back to normal for us, that he'll be home before we know it. I really miss him. Mr. Daniels gives Olivia a thumbs up, and I think how cool it is that they have the ear pulling signal. That way he doesn't always have to tell Oliver that he's doing something wrong in front of everyone. I know what that feels like, and I'm happy that Mr. Daniels cares so much. Most teachers seem to like their students to be all the same, perfect and quiet. Mr. Daniels actually seems to like that we are different. Promises, promises. All right, Fantasticos, Mr. Daniels says, rubbing his hands together like a mad scientist. First thing I'm going to do today is book talk. I will do that a lot this year. Tell you all about some of my favorite stories. When Mr. Daniels talks about books, it reminds me of Max or Oliver, like he's ready to launch a giant party. I like hearing about the story, but asking me to read them would be like asking a lobster to play tennis. And then it gets worse. He holds up a pile of notebooks. I have a surprise. I have a brand new writing journal for each of you, which you will write in every day. Oh no, I'd rather eat grass. But here's the thing. I will sometimes give you a topic, but not very often. And I will never ever, even if an evil sorcerer threatens to turn all of my correcting pens to clear ink, correct your work. Huh? They will never be graded. They will never be corrected. And most days, I won't tell you what to write about. You may write about your life, sports, the country of Bulgaria, your favorite kind of soap, books you like, books you don't like, anything. Wow, I wonder if he's delirious. No correcting? Anything we want? This is too good to be true. I know something is coming. There are only a couple of rules. Ah, there they are, the rules. You must put pencil to paper and do something, and I will often answer with a sentence or two. Right back, Oliver says. Can we grade you? Mr. Daniels laughs. We're not going to grade it all, Oliver. This is about communication, self-expression, not measurements. Can we ask you questions? Max asks. Sure, he says, passing out the notebooks. Mine is yellow. A little too nice a color for a writing thing. Can I write about football? Max asks. Anything you want. This is going to be great, Oliver yells. I'm going to ask for answers to the tests and for extra recesses and unlimited ketchup in the cafeteria. Well, Mr. Daniel begins. As I said, you can ask whatever you want. He smiles at Oliver. So open up those notebooks now and add your first entry. And make it you. This journal is yours, so an introduction to you may be a good thing, no matter how you choose to express that. Keisha begins writing while Albert stares at the blank page. The room is filled with the sounds of pencils scratching. Suki is rubbing one of her blocks with her thumb. I wonder if she's thinking about her grandfather. I see a mind movie of me walking through a forest of alphabet blocks stacked on top of each other. They sway like trees in the wind, and I worry that they will come crashing down on me. I think about drawing that, but decide to color a big three-dimensional cube with dark black sides. He said we could do anything. I want to see if he means it. The next day, Mr. Daniels holds my journal open to the page where I drew the black cube. I figured he wouldn't let that go. He holds his palm facing me and says, I know. I know I said I'd never correct you, and I'm not going to. I'm just wondering if you would mind telling me what this means. Do you like the color black, or does it mean something? Either way, it's okay. I think of the kinds of things that might make him mad and remember how he said a person can be too good at the wrong things. Maybe I don't want to get in trouble this time. It's a picture of a dark room. Oh, why would you draw a picture of a dark room? He looks serious now. It was supposed to be something about us. Why would a dark room have something to do with you, Allie? His voice is soft, really soft. I swallow hard, because in a dark room, no one could see me. He stares down at my black cube. Then he clears his throat before looking back up. Okay. Thank you for being honest, Allie. I'm so relieved he isn't mad. Allie? He pauses. Can you tell me why you don't want to be seen? I think it would be easier to be invisible. Why? I shrug. I want to give him an answer, but I have both too many words and not enough. He nods slowly. Well, he says, I'm glad you're not invisible, Allie, because this class wouldn't be the same without you. I don't believe him, but it makes me happy he said it. I realize looking at him that all this time I haven't been looking teachers in the face. I've been staring into their stomachs while I sit at my desk and they tell me things that are wrong with me. But now, on top of all those other big wishes that I carry around, I have one more. I want to impress Mr. Daniels. With every tiny little piece of myself, I just want him to like me. When we come into the classroom, Mr. Daniels makes an announcement. Attention, Fantasticos. We have brand new Fantastico seats. So, find yours and settle in. Jessica is sitting next to Suki and staring at Shay like their separation is a great injustice. It turns out that I'm sitting in the front row next to Keisha, the girl who can bake and write at the same time while I can't do either. We don't speak all morning, and I can't stop worrying that she doesn't like me. When she finally glances at me, I blurt out, I don't mind being your friend. Keisha looks annoyed. You don't have to do me any favors. No, I say, trying to undo what I didn't mean to say. I just mean, and then I stop, because I don't know what I meant, and I'm nervous and embarrassed, and that is never good when I'm trying to say something. Every word is another shovel full of dirt from the hole I've dug for myself. So I figure my best bet is to shut my mouth. But the silence gets too long and too loud, so I try to think of something to say. I always knew what to say to my grandpa, and he always knew what to say to me. I wish he were here to whisper in my ear. And then I think of Alice and how she argued with Humpty Dumpty about using the right words. I turn to Keisha and blurt out, Do you like eggs? Eggs? She asks. Oh no, she thinks I'm a barrel full of crazy. But I keep going because sometimes my tongue goes on without my say-so. Yeah, I love eggs. Scrambled eggs, fried eggs, poached on toast, and boiled eggs. I love peeling the shell off of a boiled egg. Don't you? I even like egg salad, which my brother won't eat even if someone holds him down. Her eyebrows scrunch up, reminding me of angry caterpillars. That's incredibly interesting. Then she searches inside her desk for something. I know this move. It's a polite way of ignoring me. People do it a lot. Finally, I just put my head down. Grandpa used to say that Alice in Wonderland falling down the rabbit hole was just like real life. I didn't used to understand what he meant, but I do now. There can't be any place on the planet scarier than a school cafeteria. I hold my tray so tight my fingers hurt. I hear, Hey, Allie. It's Shay. She's standing with Jessica and a few others. Yeah, I ask. Do you want to sit with us for lunch? Of course I don't want to sit with them, but I am getting tired of sitting alone and having everyone else see me sit alone. Besides that, Shay, Jessica, and some other girls all have these woven friendship bracelets. And I have never had the kinds of friends who have matching bracelets, but I have always wanted them. It's like the bracelet tells the world that the person wearing it has someone who cares about them. Not like a family member who has to care, but someone who just likes you. I want to feel a part of something. Anything, I guess. Shay is overly happy that I've said yes. I sit down after glancing at the seat to make sure I won't be sitting in a pool of glue. Shay motions to me to sit next to her. She and Jessica smile. That smile on the outside seems fine, but your gut tells you to be careful of. There are a few other girls. Max is there with one other boy. Jessica points at Albert and they start laughing. I look over and don't see anything funny. Can you believe it? Shay asks. How pathetic is that? Hey, Albert, she calls. Is that supposed to be a fashion statement? I still don't get it. He's wearing his usual Flint shirt and jeans. Why are they so worked up now? Shay hits me on the side of the arm and points down at his feet. The backs of his sneakers have been cut out. Shay calls him over and he comes. I don't know why everyone does what she says. Even me. Today, anyway. What's the matter? She asks him. Don't you have any money for shoes? Quite the contrary, Albert begins, but given the choice of buying new sneakers that I will outgrow in 3 months or a chemistry set that I can use for an undefined amount of time, this seemed the clear choice. They're in fine shape except for being just a bit short. Did you hear that? Shay asks. He chopped the back of his shoes off, like slippers. Jessica adds, next he'll be wearing a robe. Shay turns to her. I think robes would be cool. We should wear them tomorrow. Yeah, that would be cool, Jessica says. Shay laughs, but I don't think Jessica knows Shay isn't laughing because of the robes. I think Shay said something dumb to see if Jessica would go along. Sometimes I think Jessica would follow Shay out of an airplane without a parachute. Then Shay turns to me. Well, Allie, she asks, what do you think of wearing robes tomorrow? I'd like to tell her it's dumb, but I say, not my thing. Is that so? Well, what do you think of Albert and his slippers? I feel like I'm in one of those old detective movies that Grandpa loved, in a cramped small room under a bright light, being asked a question I don't want to answer. The thought to stick up for him goes through my head, but that doesn't seem like the right answer for Shay. They're pretty dopey, I say. What a weirdo, huh? I've made Shay happy. I feel terrible. And I know that I'm going to feel even worse when the shade comes down over Albert's face, when he looks sad. But that never comes. He just stands there eating Doritos and studying us like we are lab mice. I think it's curious that you worry about what I have on my feet when 3 of you are wearing red shirts. Not a wise color. Red is the color of stoplights and signs, bad wounds, warning lights, and the most severe of sunburns. It represents red alerts and high fevers. Red numbers show a loss in accounting. Red represents danger. I think of all the red marks that cover my papers from teachers. How I hate to get them back. Jessica laughs loudest. What a weirdo, Albert. Furthermore, he says, any crew member of Star Trek's Starship Enterprise who wears a red shirt never appears in another episode. Frankly, I think you've made poor choices. They all burst into loud laughter. Albert, Max says, it's only a TV show, dude, and not a very good one either. Albert's arm stops dead on the way to his mouth with another Dorito. Not a very good one? Albert, Shay says, leaning forward a bit, you go right ahead and ignore what you look like. But it's the rest of us who suffer. We have to look at you. Actually, he says, I don't take my appearance lightly. I take you lightly. And with that, he turns and is gone before she can pull out some other mean thing. And I wish I was more like Albert. Seeing him shuffle away in those sneakers makes me want to be better. I'm not perfect, but at least I'm not mean. And then my heart sinks because I realize that I just was. I guess I did it because I was lonely. Now I know that there are worse things than being lonely. Light from the hallway pours into my room as my mom opens the door. Hey, honey. Hey. I came in to check on you. You seem very quiet at dinner tonight. Something going on? Mean kids at school. Oh, Allie Bug. I'm sorry you had to put up with that. What happened? Well, the kids who were mean? Yeah? I was kind of one of them. Oh, she says with a sigh. I'm surprised by that, Allie. Tell me what happened. Those girls that came into Peterson's that time, well, they asked me to have lunch with them. I sat at their table, but then they started being mean to this kid named Albert about his clothes. I look up into her eyes, and I went along with it. I feel bad about it. My mom brushes my forehead with her fingertips. You're not a little girl anymore, Allie, so it's not too soon to decide what kind of person you want to be. Of course, I know what kind of person you are, and I love you for it. She kisses me on the forehead. You made a mistake. Everyone does. Just do your best to make it right. That's all. The words, I'm sorry, are powerful ones. Yeah, okay. I'll make it right with him. That's my girl, she says, kissing my forehead one more time before leaving. The next morning at school, I'm wondering how I can make things right with Albert. I'm drawing a pigeon wedding in my sketchbook. I don't know that Keisha is standing behind me. You drew that? I moved my arm to cover it. Why would you cover it? If I could draw like that, I'd put a commercial on TV about it. Thanks, I mumble. I don't know why I'm embarrassed, but I am. Keisha sits in her chair as I stare at her head full of thin braids, thinking it must take 3 days to do all that. So beautiful. I just love it. Not like my boring hair that just hangs there. I reach out to touch her hair. She turns towards me all of a sudden. What are you doing? Oh, Sorry. There was a mosquito. Sometimes I can't believe the things I do. It's like my arm has its own brain. Uh-huh, Keisha says. Just then, Albert walks in and he looks upset. I want to be able to tell my mom that I made things right with him, so I go over. Albert, are you okay? I ask, wondering if he'll tell me to strap myself to a rocket and light the fuse. I have a problem. I'm sorry about the cafeteria thing, I blurt out. His eyebrows rise. That didn't bother me. No need to apologize. It didn't bother you at all to have a table full of people make fun of you? You're kidding. Why would I be kidding? Can it be that he really doesn't care what people think of him? We just stare at each other. If that didn't bother him at all, and this new problem really does, then it must be really bad. Maybe it has to do with the bruises he has all the time. Can I help? I ask. No offense, but I don't really think so. Okay, I mumble. It's just a problem that I can't get out of my head. I feel like I won't be able to relax until I find an answer. Do you want to talk about it? I know sometimes when I have a problem, I talk it out with my brother or mom, even if I don't find an answer. I feel better anyway. Well, I wait. I've just been wondering, if an insect is flying inside a moving train car, is it traveling faster than the train itself? And if the insect flies in the opposite direction that the train is moving in, is it then traveling more slowly than the train? Obviously, if the fly is on the wall, it is moving at the same speed, as long as it isn't walking. But the movement within movement is a puzzle to me. Oh. He turns to me, a little intense. You see the problem here. He doesn't ask. He tells. I know he doesn't really think I can help. Who knows if I could possibly figure out the science part of what he's talking about. But my mind shows me that insect in that train car. It's a dragonfly with brilliant greenish blue wings and tiny goggles over its eyes. The car is old with dark wood walls and dark green curtains, like from Grandpa's westerns. And the people have old-fashioned clothes. I see them like they're with me now. Some of the men are sleeping. One is waving the dragonfly off with a newspaper, not even noticing its tiny goggles. Ladies with the most beautiful dresses sit there too. And I see a girl who is with her mother, and her mother keeps asking the girl if she is enjoying the ride, and the girl keeps saying yes, being sure to have a happy-sounding voice. I don't know everything about that girl, but I do know that she has a lot more to worry about than the insect on a train. She doesn't fit in. She's all dressed up in fancy clothes and has to pretend to be someone she's not. She wants to muck around, help build fences. She wants to ride a horse the real way, not side saddle like her mother insists. When I come back from my mind movie, Albert has already walked away. But I don't care. I can't help thinking about the girl in the train and how she feels. like she wants to do so much, but she's held back, and it makes her feel heavy and angry, like she's dragging a concrete block around all of the time. I'd like to help her break free from that. It's the night of the holiday concert when we sing about Santa and dreidels and Kwanzaa. The best part is getting a new dress. I stand in front of a mirror looking at my dress and my first shoes with a heel on them, thinking about the shopping day I had with my mom. We even went to A.C. Peterson's for lunch. I like how she stayed with me in a booth instead of having to go wait on other people. I love to sing, but I don't like our music teacher, Mrs. Muldoon. Max calls her Minefield Muldoon because you can never tell when she'll blow up over something. Oliver calls her that too, but he acts it out by leaping into the air and yelling, Muldoon! As he lands on the floor and rolls. He doesn't stop though. He goes from a roll right into his feet again, like a cat in a cartoon. Shay is making fun of Albert because his clothes don't fit. What's with the pants, Albert? She says. Did you get that outfit in the 3rd grade? Keisha whips around fast. Why do you always try to pull people down? She asks. Because some people deserve it. That's why, Shay answers. Deserve to be pulled down? Really? Keisha asks. Albert straightens his tie, which is the only part of his outfit that fits. He's even wearing his sneakers with the backs cut out. You know, he says, logically, if a person was to pull another down, it would mean that he or she is already below that person. Keisha lets out a laugh so loud that Mrs. Muldoon shoots her a look. Keisha covers her mouth and tries to squelch the sound. That is perfect, Albert. Man, you really are a smart dude. She turns to Shay. You, on the other hand, are so low you could play tennis against a curb. Shay's eyes narrow, but before she could say anything, Mrs. Muldoon appears and tells us to line up. For the spring concert last year, before I had a growth spurt, I had to stand in the front row. I liked when Travis called me a dime among pennies. But this year, I get to stand toward the back of the line with the taller kids, right next to Keisha. I look over at her. I love how she stuck up for Albert. She had the guts that I didn't in the cafeteria. I wish I could be braver. We all stand, waiting to file into the auditorium. Oh, Mrs. Muldoon, I love your dress, Shay says. Mrs. Muldoon lights up like a bulb. Why, thank you, Shay. Your parents have raised such a nice young lady. Oh, thank you very much, Mrs. Muldoon. Shay smiles, but when she turns away toward Jessica, she rolls her eyes, and she keeps glaring at Keisha. I decide I won't think about how mad she makes me, and I'll think instead about how the girls get to carry a bouquet of flowers. That's the good news. The bad news is that they have been donated by Jessica's father, the florist. It's nice of him, but Jessica hasn't stopped bragging about it. Mrs. Muldoon walks down the line, handing out the most beautiful bouquets I have ever seen, like the ones that brides carry. Dark red ribbons that wind around the stems like a barbershop light pole. Ribbons dangle from the bottom, too. She hands my bunch to me, and I smile, thinking of how much my mom will love to see me with them. Keisha leans in to smell them and runs her fingers over the tops of the flowers. Then one of the white buds falls off and bounces off the top of her shiny black shoe. Mrs. Muldoon is there in a second. What do you think you're doing? Mrs. Muldoon grabs the flowers from Keisha's hands. Keisha looks up. No, please don't. I didn't mean. These flowers are a gift, and if that's how you're going to treat a gift, with a complete lack of respect and gratitude, then you, Keisha Almond, will be the only girl without flowers. But Mrs. Muldoon, Keisha says, I really didn't. Mrs. Muldoon holds up her hand like she's stopping traffic. I don't want to hear it. You will have no flowers, and perhaps you will remember in the future how a lady behaves. See, Shay says to Jessica, people do get what they deserve. I stand behind Keisha, but I wish I could see her face. I wait for her to say something back, but Keisha doesn't say anything. Although I can't see her cry, I hear her sniff, and see her brush her cheek with her fingertips. And I watch a mind movie of me being the only girl without flowers marching in to see all the parents, and the look on my mom's face, how she'd be the only sad parent in a sea of smiling ones, and how I'd feel like I was less than everyone else. No one should ever feel like that. I feel my fingertips dig into the center of my bouquet to separate the thick stems. It takes some twisting to work half the flowers out of the fancy ribbon, but I put some muscle into it. Stems crack and leaves and petals fall, spinning in the air, landing all around my shiny new shoes. Mrs. Muldoon has turned around to stare. Her mouth is open wide enough for a bird to build a nest in. I hold her gaze as I hand half the flowers to Keisha. Well, she can have some of mine then. In the end, neither of us had flowers when we walked into the auditorium, but we had bigger smiles than anyone else. And boxed out. Okay, my Fantasticos. As you know, today is Fantastico Friday, and we are going to end our day with a challenge. I'm going to break you up into groups. Each group will be given a shoebox wrapped in elastic bands, which you will not remove, with a mystery object inside. Your job is to guess what the mystery object is. You can do anything to the box to figure it out except open it. There are 4 numbered boxes that will rotate from group to group. You have 10 minutes with each box, so be sure that you write down your guesses. At the end, we'll open them up to see what each object is. He claps once loudly. Any questions? Everyone looks excited. Most glance around the room, probably hoping they will be with Albert. He'll get every answer right. But I end up in a group with Max, Suki, Oliver, and Jessica. I briefly consider going to the nurse, especially when I have to stare at all of Jessica's friendship bracelets. I wonder if each bracelet is from a different friend. I glance down at my empty wrist. Box number 1 is dropped on our table. Oliver grabs it and shakes it hard. Jessica folds her arms and rolls her eyes, her response to anything not done or said by Shay. I look across the room. Shay is in a group with Albert. She's holding the box and talking. What a surprise. Yeah, Max says, taking the box from Oliver. My turn. I'm surprised when Suki speaks up first. Oliver, we all need a turn, so we must plan. 10 minutes and 5 of us, 2 minutes each. I think about the nurse again. I could lie on that comfortable bed and think. I've come up with some of my best sketchbook ideas pretending to be sick down there. Max has been shaking the box. He throws it into the air once and catches it. Whatever's inside is heavy, he says. Oliver says, maybe it's a kangaroo. Jessica looks at him in disgust. Oliver shrinks. I was just kidding, he mumbles. This makes me mad. Max hands it to Jessica, who gives it a little shake and says, I think it's a wooden block, like maybe one of those alphabet blocks. When will it be my turn again? Oliver asks. Suki is taking some kind of notes or something. Looking up at the clock, she says, Oliver, you have 25 seconds of your time left only. Oliver takes the box back and sniffs it and tries to hear something by pressing his ear to the top. Mr. Daniels calls from the other side of the room. I love that, Oliver. Creative investigation. While I wait for my turn, I wonder why Oliver always smells like graham crackers. Finally, I get the box and put it up to my ear and tilt it. Whatever is inside rolls rather than slides. It must be round, and Max is right about it being heavy. I tilt it again with my palm on the side of the box. I think it's a baseball, I say, handing it to Jessica. She does the same test and surprises me by saying, I agree. Feels like a baseball. Wait, I say, taking it back. I tilt it again quickly, and the object hits the end hard and then lightly. It bounces, I say. Would a baseball bounce? I ask, turning to Max. Nah, I don't think so. Maybe it's rubber, like a lacrosse ball. After Suki tests the box, she writes down our answer. Then we get the second box. The second item slides rather than rolls. I can tell because if it doesn't move if the box is tilted a little bit. Once tilted more, we'll move all at once. And I can feel it scraping along the bottom. It's weird, but I can almost see it. It's heavier than an alphabet block, but I think it's a shape with all flat sides. Oliver tells me that is cool, I'm so good at this. I forget to say thank you because I'm shocked. But then I also forget to be nervous, talking to everyone and feeling like I can do this as well as everyone else, and it is the best. The best feeling ever. Suki hands the box to me. Your turn to go first. The third box is harder, but I guess it's in the shape of a magic marker, but much bigger and heavier, as it slides one way and rolls the other. I glance over at Albert, who is listening to Shay talk again. Keisha is doing the talking in her group, but she is making everyone laugh. I wish I knew what they were saying. When Mr. Daniels delivers the fourth box, he stays. While Max tries to figure out what's inside, Jessica constantly compliments him on everything short of breathing. Max tells us that he thinks it's something light because it doesn't hit the sides hard. When it is his turn, Oliver looks up at Mr. Daniels. So, what do you think there, Oliver? I can see Oliver wants to be right. He tilts and shakes and decides it's a quarter. Mr. Daniels nods and pats him on the back. That's an excellent guess, Oliver. Well done. Am I right? Oliver asks. You'll have to wait and see, Mr. Daniels shrugs. Can't you just tell me now? Sorry, bud. Oliver seems disappointed. Then he looks up at me. Holding out the box, he says, Here, Allie, you're the best at this. Jessica's face looks like if she let out all of that pressure, she'd fly into the air like a rocket to the moon. Allie? Mr. Daniels asks. Huh? Oh, sorry. Sometimes when I think, I forget to talk. He laughs a little. I hold the box in front of me with the long side almost touching my stomach. I tilt the box front to back, then side to side. This doesn't make sense. What are you thinking, Allie? He asks. Well, I begin. If I tilt it front to back, the object hits the long sides of the shoebox. But if I tilt it side to side, the object doesn't hit the short sides. In my mind, I see the object must be the size and shape of a magic wand, because it moves a lot when tilted in one direction, but not when tilted in the other. What? Oliver asks. It doesn't make any sense, I say. I look down at the box and shake it side to side hard. I can't get the object to hit the sides of the box. The more I shake side to side, the more it hits top and bottom of the box. Confusing. I look up at Mr. Daniels and his half smile and scrunched eyebrows. Wait a second, I smile. Would you trick us? What do you mean, trick you? I shake it again, tilt it some more. The object hits some sides, but not all sides. Did you tape it or tie it or something? His eyes widen quick and he smiles. And then he laughs. He laughs loud, bending over and resting his hand on his knees. And then he swings his head to the side to look over at me. By this time, the whole class is watching him. Wow, Allie Nickerson. That's amazing. I've done this with over 100 kids, and no one, in all of those times, has ever been able to figure that out. He reaches over and takes the box. Taking the elastic bands off, he opens the box to show us all what's inside. It's 2 glue sticks tied together with a string, and the ends of the string are taped to the sides of the box, leaving the glue sticks hanging in the middle. He comes over and does something a teacher has never done even once in my whole life. He high-fives me.